So there's quite a few weapons and items in the new DLC that you can't normally get from farming enemies, but instead these are rewards from completing certain side missions. That is why in today's video I'm going to go over all of the bonus loot that can only be acquired from these side quests, and even though not all of them are going to be legendary, there's definitely a few very powerful options in here that you will most probably want to hunt for. And later on in the video I'm also going to show you a few extra items from the main story that you might also want to keep a hold on and not actually throw away. Again, we're gonna jump in it with all of this in just a bit, but in the meantime I also want to give a huge shout out to Instant Gaming for making this video possible. If you enjoy cheap games, then go ahead and check out their website by using my link in the description, and you can get some really awesome discounts for video games. But anyway, let's get started with a weapon that I mentioned in a previous video, and this is something that is going to help you out quite a bit in the new DLC, especially since it's so good against those loader bots. Of course, I'm talking about the MELD Phaser Hyperion shotgun that is rewarded to you from completing the side quest called Acid Trips. Now, if you want to access the Acid Trips, you can actually do that quite early on in the game from Timothy's hideout in the Spendopticon, but you can only complete this a little bit later on in the game in the power core room in Jack's secret map, so it takes a little bit of a while to actually complete this, but the weapon is definitely worth it even though it's only an epic rarity weapon. So don't get fooled by the rarity or even the small damage here on the stat card. This weapon is actually quite legit. I mean, I use this on multiple characters and even on its own it deals quite a bit of damage, most of it because it has a very good fire rate and a pretty decent magazine size, but most important, it comes with that corrosive elemental on top, and that is extremely useful against most of the enemies here on the map, as most of them have armor on, especially those loader bots. And yeah, just like how the name implies, you can definitely melt some faces, but here is the interesting part, and that is the fact that you can apply the cryo status effect when doing critical hits on the enemy, so you can have that bonus double effect both from the corrosive as well as the cryo, which slows down the enemy. So yeah, you can pretty much overwhelm them quite a bit with the shotgun over here, to the point that this became my favorite epic right now in the new DLC, so definitely go ahead and check it out. Now, the next item on the list, even though it's not going to be a weapon, it is going to be a legendary, and of course I'm talking about the RICO Shield. This is quite an interesting one because you can only get this from the all bets off mission after saving Timothy and the casino from falling in the black hole, and this is going to be done in the VIP tower entrance, so quite towards the end of the actual story DLC. But just like how the name implies, this shield is going to be all about ricocheting those bullets and, well, all other projectiles back into the enemy. It's 50% chance to reflect that while shielded, meanwhile when not shielded the percentages are even higher, 80% chance, which can further be buffed with additional prefixes. For example, in my case I have an additional one of 15% when shielded, so this is actually quite useful in fights. It keeps you alive for quite longer and it reflects most of the projectiles from the enemies. This includes bullets, even rockets or energy orbs can be reflected back into the enemies, so you can pretty much stay in the middle of the group and just leave the enemies to blast themselves off in the face. That's pretty much it. Of course, the capacity isn't really that high, but since you have all of those high chances, it is most definitely very good. Moving on to number 3, this is going to be Digby's epic assault rifle that you can get from the mission Do It for Digby. This is going to be rewarded to you in part 3 after completing it, so the side quest can be obtained in the Spendopticon from this region here on the map. It's actually near this bar, you will find Digby over there. The weapon is pretty legit. It's not the most powerful AR out there, but it looks quite pretty. It comes in with some pretty decent damage, and especially since it comes in with that cryo damage over there, it is quite useful against the enemies. I'm not entirely sure if it can drop with other elementals. In my case, on 2 separate characters, it always dropped with the cryo in it, so yeah, let me know if it drops with anything else. But the cool part about this is that it plays a saxophone sound when shooting with it, and it pretty much sounds like this. You can also swap between different firing modes. In my case I had between fully automatic and 3-shot burst, and the 3-shot burst was actually quite impressive, even though it was kinda depleting my magazine size quite fast, but it was dealing quite a bit of damage in there. I'm not gonna lie, it's not the best weapon in the game, but it was quite useful. It applies the cryo effect quite easily. I mean, 110% cryo efficiency is definitely quite nice, and it also slows the enemy over there, so yeah, some really nice weapon. It also looks cool, and at the very least you can add this to your collection. Let's Let's move over though to number 4, which is going to be another assault rifle, though this time around a rare one, and this is called the Lope. It's rewarded to you by completing the Great Escape side mission in the Impounded Locks map. So as soon as you reach that map, you're going to see it right there, and you can complete it at this NPC. You just have to run a few errands for him and he will reward you this weapon. But it's actually quite an interesting one. It's pretty much a fully automatic grenade launcher with a nice high rate of fire on it, but honestly I was expecting it to have a little bit more damage. I mean, the damage per bullet over here is quite high, and it also comes in with a nice splash damage radius bonus, or at least it did in my case, 132 to that. And if you run with a splash damage build, this should definitely benefit from that as well. One note that I do have about this weapon, I think that this is a little bit broken right now because its bonus stock cryojets increase damage by 9% each doesn't appear to work. At the very least it didn't in my limited testing, and I believe that this type of bonus only works when actually going into the sticky mode, which is something that this weapon doesn't seem to have. Anyway, there's a couple more shields that you can get from this DLC from a bunch of side quests. One of them is the Double Downer, and this is going to be an epic Hyperion shield that gets rewarded to you from the Double Down side quest in the Spendopticon. Again, I believe that this is going to be after completing the main story or towards the end, because I only saw it after completing the main story completely, but it comes in with some really interesting stats over here. As you can see, while fighting for your life, it gives you 25% additional weapon damage and 150% accuracy as well as handling, and it also comes in with a double duration bonus for fight for your life. It's not that this is powerful in fights or anything, it can be situationally good, but the side quest was pretty funny and I do like adding new items to my collection. The other shield is going to be called Allin, and you will be rewarded this from completing the Raining One's Feet side quest in the grand opening area. As a matter of fact, this is going to be one of the first side quests that you can encounter in the DLC, and it's going to be in the first area right here next to the slot machines. But it seems that this always comes in with the Aegis prefix, and it also comes in with some really interesting bonuses. I'm especially talking about the one having 25% chance to drop a booster that increases your action skill cooldown rate by 50% for 10 seconds, but it also comes in with that luck bonus stat over there. Of course, also comes in with these boosters that you can pick from the ground, and it has an additional prefix, in my case 30% chance to absorb bullets as ammo. Again, nothing too over the top, but that action skill cooldown rate can be useful in certain scenarios. Finally, I was talking about a couple of other weapons from the main missions that you might want to keep a hold of, even though they might be rare or epics, and these can be quite useful even in the early game and even when actually finishing it. One of them is the Just Chaos, which is a SMG, and this is something that Timothy actually rewards you quite early on in the game. As soon as you reach the Spendopticon, free him and help him out, he is going to give you this weapon right here that you can pick off from his hands. But it's actually quite useful against those loader bots. I'm not gonna lie, the damage is pretty good for an SMG. It comes with a nice high rate of fire, also a pretty sizable magazine size of 40, which is as high as you can expect from these types of weapons. So since you're doing all of that corrosive damage, this is going to be extremely useful against all of those enemies. The same goes with the Robomelter Masher, which is something that you get in the mission called The Plan in the Spendopticon towards the end of the DLC. So keep an eye out for this, because this is also very important. As a matter of fact, this is actually quite more powerful than the previous gun because, well, it's a masher and it deals quite a lot of damage. Again, we have that corrosive bonus elemental on top, and critical hits ricochet one bullet at the nearest enemy. But I did test this around and it deals quite a lot of damage. Mine came in with a nice almost 400 damage times 5, so this is really high. This is really high for a pistol. It also came in with a nice fire rate, a nice magazine size. I mean, it's just 6, but you know, it could have been worse. So I actually like this weapon quite a bit, to the point that I even replaced my Maggie, and I think this is more powerful than the Maggie that I got. Of course, there's more in there to talk about. I'm pretty sure there was a COV assault rifle that you can only get from the main mission, and there's also the Scoville and Emperor's Purge from completing the Torgue Fire Barrel and the Pieces of Resistance crew challenges. You get these via email though, and not from actually completing these challenges. But yeah, I believe that with this we covered pretty much all of the new items and secret weapons in the new DLC. Of course, let me know if I missed anything. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, as always, don't forget to comment, like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and peace!